Alright everybody, welcome back to another disc golf video on the channel here. Today we are going to be in Great Meadows, New Jersey at Field of Dreams, which is probably my favorite course that I've played, at least to date. A lot of par 4s out here, a lot of gettable holes. Hole 1, basically just hit the gap, just get it out there. I throw a destroyer, something overstable for me at least, and just place something out there that I can either have an easy chip forehand or just like a easy putter shot. The basket's just to the right of my arm there, next to those bushes. And I was looking at the pig shot because I've been practicing the forehand here, but instead I decided on the DX Aviar turnover. And I got over it a little too much height on it too. I ended up right in the center of that bush, you'll see in a second. I've got kind of a weird obstructed look. I mean, it's either this weird turnover pitch out or the scuba, which I ultimately decide on. I have not practiced it enough, but I knew I just wanted to get it flat so that it didn't cut roll. And yeah, there was nothing that way. I thought about it for a second, but it was just it was too tough. I had a way better chance with the scuba. I don't really ever throw scubers or like overhand throws, but it's honestly probably worth practicing these days because, I mean, every so often you find yourself in a situation like this where it's kind of the only option. I mean, that was pretty close for never really having practiced that kind of shot. I mean, I'm just left with a little tap in, and I'm really not complaining with a par after being in such a bad spot. Hole 2 is a very tight U-shaped hyzer with something extremely overstable. You can see I got the 2020 Sexton Firebird in the hand. Just throw something not full speed, something very overstable on a tight line on like the left side of these trees. There's a lot of trees that'll knock your discs down, and if you end up to the lower left here, you're in some trouble. And this used to be a par 4. But they made it a par 3 now. I guess just with like the COVID quarantine and stuff, they kind of reworked some of these holes. Like some of the layouts are slightly different. There's a couple different tee locations, and some of the holes have different pars, which is fine. Today I'll actually be putting with the regular P-line P2s, not the soft P-line P2s. I got these recently. They feel great in the hand. They're just a little stiffer than the soft P-lines. And I also feel like on these courses that are a little grassier and not quite as bumpier with all the rocks and elevation changes, though there is elevation change out here, it's not so much on the greens. So with these like dirt and grass greens, I like to go with a more firm putter, and I think it's fine for this course. It didn't really come back and bite me choosing those putters over the soft P lines. So here, this shot, on the picture, it appears to be like a straight shot and then a little bit left at the end, but really it plays more like a straight shot with a little bit right at the end. Because there's a bush that I barely missed right there on the right side of the fairway, which you're not going to see here because I ended up on the left in a very, very obstructed upshot area. That bush on the right side catches a lot of discs and knocks them down, and then you basically have this look but mirrored to the right side. And I try to play away from that, but since that's there, it almost plays like a left to right rather than a right to left, so that picture is a bit misleading. Here I basically have nothing but this little forehand pitch out, which actually went a lot better than I thought it was going to. And after admiring my mini, little tap in. So we got 3 pars on 3 somewhat gettable holes. I'm fine with pars though, as long as they're not bogeys. I'm really not complaining out here. Hole 4, another basically dead straight shot. I've got the putter in the hand again. There's a gap right above my head there that you will see me hit very nicely here. Basically just throw something kind of stable. That's my most overstable putter I have in the bag at the moment. And I just kind of throw it as flat as I can up into that gap and hope that it stalls nicely and doesn't roll down this hill, because we have a hanging basket and a very sloped green here, and I got very lucky to stay right by that tree. So it's nice to pick up our first birdie here after missing a couple gettable holes there. Alright, so let's see if we can get the ball rolling here after getting our first birdie. We're off to hole 5. Used to be hole 18. Basically, an overstable anything. It's not a very long throw. You just have to get through this gap. I've played this course enough times to know if you get through at all, you have a putt, because it's a very forgiving green down there. I got lucky right here, sneaking through on the right, and I gave myself a putt. As you hear me realize in real time right there. So it's a bit of a long putt, but this is about the distance I practice typically, like in my driveway and stuff. So it's nothing I should miss. And as you see, we grabbed the birdie there. Yeah, I love this hole. It's just a nice flat release, not like a full power shot by any means. You can pretty much throw anything that you know is going to dump left at the end, and just hope that you get lucky through the trees like I did. Hole number 6 is a really cool hole. This actually used to be hole number 1. So this is actually technically the first hole I ever played out in Field of Dreams. So it's a little special to me. I actually birdied it the first time I ever played it. Gonna be throwing a big forehand. My goal is to just aim for that far basketball hoop, which I kind of get near, but I'm aiming for my release point to be the basketball hoop and have it cut a lot closer so that this shot is a lot easier. This slopes down really steep, and if you go too long, there's actually a river, which is obviously out of bounds, and also you probably lose your disc. But there's a tree that overhangs kind of close to the basket, and what I like to do is turn something over so it lands in that tree and drops straight down. But out of the hand, that one felt and looked good, but it actually stayed on top of the hill, and I'm in a bush right here, as you can see. So I have a look at the basket. I can at least see it. As you can see, I'm lining up a forehand because the more left you go, there's like a low ceiling of trees, and obviously you're just going further away from the basket. But let's just see how the shot goes here. Yeah, so somehow I'm parked. I threw a bad forehand, missed my line, went through the V of that tree, clipped the tree, hit the next little tree, as I lie to you in the background, clipped the next little tree and landed 6 feet away. I mean, I have no words. Hole 7. There's some bird poop on the sign there. Hole 7 is an uphill tee shot. You just got to get over this hill, and there's a tree. Another hole where I like to use the tree as not only a throwing point, but to keep my disc from going too far. Chuck it up there. Hopefully you catch some cabbage, and it drops in the middle of the fairway. Absolutely nailed the drive. Pretty much picture perfect placement. I'd like to be maybe 20 or 30 feet more forward, but that's all my arm can get me these days. So I got a 2020 Sexton Firebird in the hand, and it's basically just a flat, overstable hyzer forehand. Now out of the hand, I immediately thought that was too high and too right, but as you'll see here in a second when we get to the green, it has all this backstop. This actually curls around to like the fairway from where I threw the shot, and being that high and inside, you're pretty much always going to hit that backstop and end up somewhat flat for a putt, and the green is pretty forgiving here. So we were able to pick up a relatively routine birdie. Alright, on to hole 8, another one of the par 3s out here. It's another pretty short, routine chip hyzer with something overstable. I'm going with the pig because I feel like the drivers I might use are just a little too fast, might go long, and I really don't want to throw something in the river. A lot of these discs are new, so I'm not trying to lose anything. I hit this one pretty perfect. I did hear it hit a bush, which you'll see right there on the left, but I mean, it was fine. It fought through, and I've got about a 10, 12 footer. So you'll see me routinely tap that in, and we're just going to move over to hole number 9. Not really much to talk about, just an easy 1, 2, 3, bada bing, bada boom. Hole number 9 is basically a dead straight shot. I don't know why the T sign shows it like such a hard right turn. It's really not that severe. I personally think the forehand lines up better, but I wasn't feeling it, so I went with the putter. I was worried about sawing it off too early right and having to contend with all that brush there. So instead, I sawed it off left with the putter. I got kind of lucky, though, as you'll see in a second here. I have somewhat of a look. I got this kind of over-the-top pig flick shot. But I have to be careful because if I come in with too much cut, I'm going to roll back down the hill and have either a further or just the same look as I'm looking at right here. So I'm just lining this up. I'm trying to give this a run. I genuinely think I can make this, and I almost do. Just a little bit too high, skipped off the top of the basket. We're kind of lucky, though, that I didn't roll back down, and just an easy tap in, little 5, 6 footer. Not going to complain about a par on that hole, especially after an errant drive. That's probably the least forgiving green on the course, if I can remember correctly as of right now. So throwing that shot, hitting the basket, and having it stay up there is actually like super good and super lucky. This hole is, some days I feel good about it, some days I absolutely hate it, but it's a pretty much you have to forehand it. I'm going with the instinct here because it doesn't quite dump as hard as my other drivers, and I absolutely pured it. This is easily the best forehand I've ever thrown on that hole, I will say. It looked a lot better from the tee pad, but I've got like a, I don't know, 25 footer maybe, 20 footer, and we cashed it in. That one feels good because that drive is hard, and that putt was decently long. And being a somewhat new player who's been playing for a bit less than a year, both of those are not something that I do well all the time, so it feels really good to get that one. Hole 11 is probably my favorite, or one of my favorite holes out here. When I think about Field of Dreams, for some reason this is the hole that comes to mind. It's just a very satisfying line to hit. I love throwing this shot and weaving through the trees. And I didn't execute that at all. We got a really lucky kick though, so I've got like an edge of circle putt. Yeah, I think I mainly like this hole and just this course because there's a lot of more open fairways. It's very forgiving. There's a lot of par 4s out here, and it just feels really good to get a good score on some of these holes. That putt just came out too right, too fluttery, kind of hooked on the finger a little bit, but at least I gave it the proper distance. So we're taking a par on probably my favorite hole, which kind of sucks a little bit, but not too bad. At least it's not a bogey. Could have been a lot worse. Moving on to hole 12. Hole 12 is another hole which feels really good to hit because there's a couple early things that you just got to miss, and then it's very open, so you're good. I used to throw like an understable mid-range or maybe a putter, but today this forehand was feeling just good enough for me to line up this left gap. And I absolutely nailed the tree. But we got a nice left kick, so I've got a very open look here. I've got the DX Aviar in the hand, but I want to go with the less understable D-line P2, a little straighter of a disc. I just want to kind of flip it up there and land near or under the basket. Kind of giving it a half run, but it was just too straight. So we're going to take another par on hole 12. Hole 13 used to be a par 4 playing from, if you look at the tee sign there at the bottom, there was the old tee. Now I think they're going to make that the long tee instead. But this one plays now as a par 3. For me, it's still a 2-shot hole. I'm not really trying to test this and kick way back down the hill where I just came from. So I just kind of half speed a putter as straight as I can. This is actually a pretty ideal spot. I mean, yeah, you'd like to be higher up, but this is fine for me. And I'm just picking up the same DX Aviar. Give it a little anhyzer. Have it kind of flop up on the green there. Give yourself something less than 20-foot putt. And I'm pretty happy with it. There's a flagpole that you can't quite see from the, which you'll see in a second here, from where the camera was, right there on top of the basket, that I'm kind of gauging my aim off of, and I'd say that's pretty good. So I'll take a par on one of the trickier, harder holes, or can be tricky and hard out here at Field of Dreams. Oh, Jesus, I'm dying. Hole number 9 is the start of the more open holes out here. I have a Ricky Wysocki Raptor stamp destroyer, which is pretty overstable for me. It's a nice fast disc. I'm just trying to rip it flat, basically in a straight line, kind of where you see those people walking in the distance there by that one green tree, that light green tree. It comes out a little early, a little bit high, but it's not awful. I've got kind of like an edge of circle putt. The important thing is that I missed this tree right here. I'm not obstructed at all by that tree to my right, because that's gotten in my way plenty of times. Now I have a little bit of back left wind, so I know it's going to push my putt down. So I'm thinking to really give this one a nice solid high run, but I just gave it a little too much height, and we just kissed off the top there. But not bad. I mean, there's some OB on this one. The wind kind of messes you up. So it could have been a lot worse. I'm really not complaining about a par on hole 14 here. Hole 15 is just another, there's nothing in the way. Just throw something into the field. Pretty straightforward. Nothing to really talk about. Got a brand new 2020 Heimburg destroyer. Just smash it. Don't throw anywhere near the OB or the tree. And that's it. That's probably about 320. I think there's a tree to the left. I think I've measured it before at like 330, 340, something like that. And I'm maybe 10, 15 short of where that lines up across the field. So I'll take that pretty much every time. Now I'm lining up a pretty routine approach for this hole. There's still some wind to my back as we've now shifted like 90 degrees to the right of where that last tee pad is. So I know I can kind of give this one a little bit of a run. Not trying to make it or anything, but I know I can give that one a little bit of hyzer and throw it fairly hard, and I won't really test the out of bounds. Also, this grass is somewhat thicker, so with a putter anyway, it's not going to skip, but the grass is really going to grip it and keep it close. So this elevated basket is a little more daunting than it seems on film. Maybe because I'm closer and it's in the background. As you can see, I'm very relieved to make that because that can go super bad super quickly. So it's nice to get a birdie on that hole because as of late, since they've raised the basket, I've been having issues with it. Hole number 16, we're actually playing to the orange basket, or the orange basket location. It is actually still the yellow basket. There's just not a yellow basket, like a short location yet for this hole. I've got the Essence in the hand, which is the first time I've thrown this one today. And I think a period in the last 2 videos. Anyway, just throw something pretty straight. Push as far right as you can to give yourself a better look for the second shot. This one plays as a par 4 now. It used to be a par 5. I don't really know why they changed it. I thought it was fine as a par 5. I guess enough people were eagling it to make it a par 4. But for my noodle arm, this hole is still a 3-shot hole for me. This one I pushed way too right. I don't know why I threw it out there. It's a good throw. It's just so far right, it ends up being a bad golf shot. But this is not even a bad spot to be. It's just for scoring purposes, I'm not going to birdie, obviously, from here, unless I throw something in. So I'm lining up the pig shot. Basically just need something overstable. Throw it at the bushes on the right there. The basket is directly behind that one tree that you could see there. And that's probably the best upshot I've ever thrown from a location like that. And in the past, before quarantine, that would have been the best birdie I've ever gotten on this hole. The easiest birdie, I guess. But regardless of what the hole's par might be, that still feels good. And it's still a 4 either way. So we're walking away with a par on that one, which, like I said, feels great. Especially after not the best second shot. And that upshot was probably the best I've thrown on that hole. Hole 17 is a fairly short, relatively simple hole here. I'm reaching for my less stable of my two pigs. There's a pretty open gap on the right side, and I'm just kind of throwing something to have it hyzer in and just dump left, which I do execute. Ideally, it'd be a bit longer. I'm thinking I should have maybe gone with the instinct on that hole, because I could throw it nice and flat with good power, and it'll really get through there and push the end of this gravel path. But we're left with this kind of obstructed look. This first tree is not in my way at all, but the leaves right over the basket are. And I just barely was able to use the leaves to slow down my disc enough to get in the basket. So we'll take a par on the second to last hole here. Moving on to 18, which is a relatively simple hole also. So I'm really looking to pick up the birdie to finish off strong. I forgot to take a picture of the tee pad sign, so there's your thing. 258 feet, easy par 3. I've got the instinct in hand because I was thinking about that in real time on the last hole. I was like, you know what, should have thrown the instinct. So I've got the instinct. Basically just miss all these bushy trees here, throw it on nice hyzer, and have it glide up to the basket. And that's pretty perfect. I miss everything, as there's nothing to hit out there. And we're about less than 10 feet from the basket. Put down the mini, putt with the instinct, cash. All right, y'all. That was a pretty somewhat successful round. Didn't hit all the lines, didn't make all the putts, but I love this course. Pretty happy with it. Appreciate you watching me be okay at disc golf. And feel free to make fun of my noodle arm in the comments. Thanks. See you next time. Have a blessed evening.